Palladio's work is infamous. From the series of country villas and Venice churches to his most infamous work, the writing of the 4 books on architecture, Palladio has not only stood the daunting test of time, but continues to influence architecture even to this day. His origins, though humble, start in Vicenza. Andrea de Pietro was born in 1508, a young mason and sculptor who was introduced to Trissino, who gave him the name Palladio after the poetic palace. This leads us to our 3 buildings in Vicenza, which tell us the deep, personal, and poetic narrative of Palladio's architectural work. The Basilica de Palladio is located at the Piazza dei Signori. This building is suitable to be the first in our discussion because it talks about Palladio's early contemporary adaptation of antiquity. Much of the facade can be seen in his contemporaries, like Raphael and Baramonte. The basilica focuses much on manipulating the orders, a topic which his contemporaries were very fond of. Much like the facades of Raphael and Baramonte, the facade is 2 stories with the facade divided by 2 double half columns. Palladio even states in his 3rd book that the basilica of our times differ in this from the ancients. The facade is most notably in these examples divided not only by its material, but its orders as well, the top order being Ionic, a light pure order, and the bottom being a Doric order, a heavy and firm order. This basilica is read as an adaptation of the ancient basilica, its contemporary relying on the manipulation of orders and other thinkers around Palladio. It does not rely as heavily on Roman antiquity like the other projects that we discuss. In his 3rd book, he states that, "I do not doubt but this fabric may be compared among the ancient edifices and ranked among the most notable and most beautiful fabrics that have been seen since ancient times." After this project, Palladio goes on to do much of his most infamous work, but when the city of Vicenza invites him back to build again at the Piazza dei Signori almost 20 years later, we see a different Palladio return here. Instead of purely imitating his last work or his contemporaries, for his Loggia del Capitone, we see a distinct shift in Palladio. The first and most evident difference is the material. It is a traditional brick instead of stone like the basilica. It is a public loggia below and offices above. What is much different here is his references to antiquity. This shows Palladio's deep affinity for Roman architecture. This reflection and level of antiquity is what we see in the great humanist thinkers strive for. It is extremely similar to that of the Arch of Septimius, with its almost synonymous placement of ornament and half columns. The heaviness of the structure is distinctly Roman, unlike the much lighter basilica that it faces. Renaissance scholar Rudolf Whitaker, however, clarifies that it is not purified of contemporary influence, but relies less on his contemporaries. The facade is in reference to the work of Michelangelo. The front-facing facade is to that of the Capitolone Palace, and the windows are extremely distinct reference to Michelangelo's library. This is the ultimate distinction between the 2 buildings at the Piazza dei Signori. This model of antiquity leads us to the final project, just a few blocks up from the piazza. The Olympic Theater is a pinnacle for Renaissance humanists due to the fact that it successfully revives a Greek theater typology. It shows a few things that make one draw to this conclusion. The section shows the idea of perfect perspectival understanding, and the frame of the stage once again shows a very well thought out triumphant arch, much like at the Loggia. The theater shows the accumulation of Palladio's strict and meticulous documentation of Vitruvius and Roman architecture. The sky painting on the ceiling reflects the idea of experience of the Greek theater. This shows a more Renaissance approach to antiquity, rather than a more poetic version that we see at the Loggia. On reflecting on these buildings, I would have to say these 3 buildings lie on a scale, the basilica at the end of the scale. This is Palladio following his contemporaries. The theater at the other end is a pure humanist antiquity, purely relying on influence. Lastly, the Loggia. The Loggia is the beautiful middle ground, shows us the mature, philosophical, poetic, meticulous Palladian architecture. It was a fulfillment, but of something much greater and higher than antiquity and contemporaries, something much more divine.